Hi, welcome back. So the next thing is mappings between the entity classes. See, in the last section, we have seen that how we can interact with the underlying database to perform the CRUD operations, like you want to save the user, you want to retrieve the user, you want to update, you want to delete. So we have seen all these operations. See, in the real world application, very rarely an entity will be standalone. So generally, there will be relationship between entity classes. Like for example, if you consider user, so the user may be associated with the address. Okay. So what is the street, what is the city, and what is the zip code, etc., etc. So what I would like to emphasize is between the entity classes, there can be different possible mappings. There is one-to-one relationship, or one to many, or many to one, or many to many. So all these are the different possible mappings between the entity classes. So now we are going to explore one-to-one mapping. So I had already done the coding. So I'll just try to go through that. And anyway, I'm sharing the source code as well. Okay. And I will also give some assignments so that you can do some practice over this and you can gain more confidence. Okay. So in this example, what we will be seeing is user has one-to-one relationship with address. Okay. See, earlier, if you see in the earlier last example, a user had the name and the country. Now, what we are going to do is we are going to add address. So I created the address entity class. So it's basically has street and city. You can add zip code and other details, maybe landmark, etc. I just kept it only for street and city to keep it simple. Okay, right. That's it. I have the appropriate getter and setters. So I gave the table name as this. And one more thing is table name is not at the rate table is not mandatory. In case you don't give that, by default it will take address. Okay. So it depends upon your requirement. Fine. And I want to generate the value automatically every time whenever I'm trying to save a new record. So that is the reason I give at the rate generated value. Fine. Next. So here in the user, so here the relationship is between user and the address. Okay. So every record, every user record has one address. Okay. So it is one-to-one relationship. See, what do we mean by this cascade? See, cascade means, see, whatever operations you are trying to perform on the user, that automatically takes place on the address. Like for example, let us assume you are trying to create or save the user record. So if that user record has the address related fields, it automatically creates a record in the address table as well. So if this cascade type all or appropriate is not existing, so what you have to do is you have to manually insert a record in the address and take the ID which is generated, and then you have to insert it in the address. So to avoid that extra coding, we can keep it as cascade type all. Okay, right. Next. So in the user controller, I did not change anything. And I created one more repository, that is address repository. And I didn't have any custom methods to be added here. So I just kept it empty. And I didn't have the extra service as well, because everything I'm taking care here itself. See, very simple. Whenever you are trying to save the user, that user itself has the address inside that. So you need not specifically save the address separately. In case you didn't have the cascade type all, then you had to do that. Okay, right. And when I was trying to add this code, I was getting null for the address fields, and hence I was trying to just try to debug it by trying to print the city. And when I'm trying to use the get city here, I came to know that I did not use the getters and setters in the address. So that is why it was saving the null. Okay. So and hence after that I added the getters and setters here. So after that the records are getting saved appropriately. See here I don't need any changes in the user as well. The reason is, so I'm just receiving the user which internally has the address, and I'm invoking the service, and service is further invoking the repository, and in the repository basically the save method. And the save, single save is sufficient because we have the cascade type as all, that will also create a new record in the address. Fine. Okay, so this is one-to-one example for one-to-one. Similarly, we will explore one-to-many and many-to-many, right? So let me try to show the payload, the JSON payload or the JSON body which I'm trying to send here, so that you will get some idea. Okay, so here the country, I'll try to keep it as Singapore, and let us say the name of the person is KKK, and the address of the person is maybe street 999. Okay, and maybe some city. Okay, I'll try to put the city name as Singapore itself, right? Fine. So let me try to send this, and let us check in the underlying DB table if that is being created. Okay, right. First, let me check in the user info if that user got created. Yes, the user got created. Let me check in the address. Yes, got created. Fine. So one more observation from here is the relationship is from user info to the address, but not vice versa. Okay. So the mapping column, see this address ID is the mapping column. Okay. So this is one more thing to observe. Okay. So the mapping column is being created in the source table. So that is about mapping. So what you can do is to try out an example. So anyway, I'm sharing this source code with you. So you can try to add. So let me go to the source code. See, for the user, you have an address. So similarly, for the user, you can try to have maybe which service provider the user is using. Okay, the network service provider. Is it Airtel or Vodafone or whichever? Okay, so you can try to create a class or the entity class with the name service provider or the network provider, and inside that let us have the name of the network provider, and maybe the address, let it be a simple string, or don't associate further with this address, it will get confused. So you can just have the name of the service provider and what is the plan which is being taken. Okay, let it be a string. Okay, so you can try to create one more association here and see what changes you need to do to these to make it work. And if you come across any questions, please feel free to message me.